National Affairs broadcasting live from the Dhaka's Gulshan studio. My name is Shamsul Alam Pantho. As I bring you the important news subjects from around the globe, the updates and the whereabouts of the stories that I'm going to present to you. But before I do this presentation and the following discussion, I want to introduce my panel. Here in the studio, we have Associate Professor Rashid Alam Bhuiya of Dhaka University. I welcome him onto this program. Thank you for coming in today. As well as our Washington, D.C. geopolitical correspondent, Norman Floyd Barnes, joining us from all the way in United States of America. It is important to understand the major updates that are happening in. Donald Trump says that the U.S. will leave Iran in 2 to 3 weeks, as Tehran says it has necessary will to end the war. Of course, the Foreign Minister for Iran, Abbas Araghchi, has come out to say that he is having contacts with Steve Witkoff, the special envoy, but it does not constitute a ceasefire, if not a negotiation. And the Iranian side is looking for the ends to the war in certain conditions will prevail. I'm pretty sure about it. And not only so, Donald Trump came out yesterday telling his European allies to say that you should all go to the Strait and go collect your oil on your own. So that is a retaliatory messaging between US and its allied nations in NATO as well as Europe. I want to begin with Norman Floyd Barnes. What are the updates that you have? It is a trying time. As we all know, a hot mess has prevailed for 33 days. What are some of the updates coming from your desk, Norman?
Yes, good morning. Today, the 1st of April. Congress is on Easter break this week. The president is calling for President Trump is calling for a press conference, a briefing to the general public this evening to give the United States citizens an update on the status of the war in Iran. News services has reported that the president is predicting the war to end in 2 to 3 weeks.
Correct.
While another aircraft carrier is en route leaving Norfolk, Virginia, towards the region with 6,000 sailors and additional, I believe, 3 destroyers and additional military personnel. So this situation has now come to the terms that the president has also stated that the allies who has a concerned interest in the area need to take care and provide security for getting their own oil out of the region.
Right.
So it's giving a strong indication that the United States is pulling away from the security in the Strait of Hormuz regarding transportation of tankers through the region, and he putting it back onto the countries of the European countries to provide their own security and provide their own means of getting that out. As we speak, one of the tankers was attacked. Its second tanker was attacked in Qatar yesterday, and the status of that is still unknown. While the tanker that was attacked off of Dubai, the officials stated that the fire was contained and no oil was released into the Persian Gulf area. So, so these are some of the things that is going on. The president is scheduled. Like I said, the main thing is he's going to talk to the public today and tell them exactly what he knows and what his plan is in regarding this conflict in this area.
Of course.
And also, there's a journalist was a kidnapping in Iraq, and we do not know what the status of that is, but officials are stating that it's relating to the U.S. and Iranian conflict.
Of course, I enjoyed this news journalism provided by Norman Floyd Barnes from Washington. It is important, and let me add on here before coming back into the studio. A U.S. freelance journalist has been kidnapped in the Iraqi capital of Baghdad, and one of the suspects is linked to Iran-backed militia. Iraqi and U.S. officials say her name is Shelly Kittleson. And of course, this is coming during the wartime effort. Right. And not only so, yesterday we have seen a suspected drone attack on Kuwait International Airport and its fuel tanks reserves, but no loss of life has been indicated or reported. And not only so, the entire region seems to be changing. Israel cabinet, the Knesset, passes a law that would allow to use capital punishment on those who are regarded as prisoners or Palestinian prisoners, to be specific. Not only so, there was a genocide on Gaza, as we have seen, 80,000 deaths and numerous injuries. Not only so, right now, it has a legal basis, or the Israeli administration has a legal basis. It's important to see the future and how Palestinians shall be dealt in that region. How do you think about it?
Thank you so much for bringing me here, and also the updates of the whole of the region in the Middle East currently. I think, yeah, the issues related to Iran and Israel is a contentious issues. We have been seeing this for centuries, for decades actually. So this war actually a manifestation of the, Iranian support for unconditional support for the Palestinian population was there always, and that is the main reason Iran is now in the war. You know, Israel provoked an unprovoked attack on particularly the Palestinian population in Gaza, now in the southern Lebanon. Yesterday they destroyed a whole village in southern Lebanon. So that is the main problem and main instabilities issues in the Middle East. And that and Israel's greatest plan of Greater Israel, so annexation of the continuously Israeli borders, is the main unstable issues. And Iran actually stood against that. The main problem of Iran and Israel war, main conflict, is hidden there. Iran tried to stop this Israeli and illegal aggression on the Middle Eastern border, particularly the border, the annexation, the mass genocide in Gaza. Iran stood up for that causes. Right. That is the main problem Israel have with Iran. Otherwise, Iran is okay with their own resources, own foreign policies, own human capital and own wealth. They do not have any other issues with the Middle East. They can live peacefully. But since they really believe in Islamic Republic government, that Islam, they are very much spirited with Islamic ideals which call for justice. So they wanted to bring some justice for the Palestinian population, particularly the massacre that happened in Palestinian for the centuries, for the years. So that is the main reason Iran stood against Israelis annexation. And that what is the unfortunately the Iranian neighbors, the regional, the countries, they do not see this as a biggest issue, but sooner or later their country will be also annexed by Greater Israel policies of current Israeli government. So that is the main, it's very important to contain Israel these annexation policies, and the Middle Eastern countries, they have to be work unitedly with Iran to stop that annexation. Current killing and current exodus situation in the southern Lebanon is also telling us it's not only contained within the Palestinian, but it is Israel, Greater Israel policy that actually causing these huge losses of life, resources in the region.
And not only so, this law that they have recently passed,
which is very
this is
inhumane.
Genocidal law, and in southern Lebanon, the death toll as of today stands at 1,268 people murdered and injuries over 4,000 people. And it's important to understand where southern Lebanon is, their sovereignty being questioned by their neighbor Israel. And I want to bring up an issue with Norman Floyd. Israel has cancelled a planned visit by French Armed Forces Minister Alice Ruffo to Tel Aviv after France refusing to allow US aircraft carrying weapons to Israel to fly over its territory, according to Israeli media on Tuesday. Movement away from European allies, European nations, and the similar of sort can be seen by the US President Donald Trump. I want your observations. NATO did not participate inside this war, even though they had gunned down some of these drones over Turkey. But earlier on, we've seen how the issue regarding Greenland came about, and NATO once again has said that it does not see any reason to occupy that island. I want to know the move away from Europe. Norman Floyd Burns, what is your observation? How you feel about this drastic new normal?
Thank you for the question. This new normal is a response to the abnormal. approach that the Trump administration has taken regarding global affairs. The issue of Greenland has really upset our allies in Europe. The tariffs has upset the entire global context, and the United States involvement with Israel in the region with this unprovoked attack on Iran is also causing real heartburn for many countries dealing with things. So right now, the U.S. president has mentioned that he predicted 2 to 3 weeks the U.S. should be finished with this conflict. However, the officials in Iran and their proxies are indicating and stating that we are not finished. We're just starting this conflict. So we are looking for a long haul regarding the response, even though the United States said they're going to pull back. The other aggressors and the Houthis and the new allies of Iran is now stating that they're now going to increase their attacks, increase their response, and they will be causing problems on particularly Americans companies that are situated in the Middle East, particularly like Google, Microsoft, and whatever. They are planning to attack them. Educational institution, our energy and water group areas that is saturated by the Gulf states. All these areas are subject impending attacks. The U.S. consulate has advised U.S. citizens in Saudi Arabia to take cover. They're predicted to have more activity that goes on. But the situation, I see it as escalating versus de-escalating, even though the president has mentioned a timeline of 2 to 3 weeks. Thank you.
Of course, that was a very important reasoning coming from Norman Floyd Barnes, 2 to 3 weeks. Previously, last summer, 2025, we've seen Donald Trump giving a 2-week headroom towards Iran and then attacking in day 2 of that 2-week timeline. So it is very easily recognized that any moment the US might decide on their typical course of action regarding the Strait of Hormuz. And that strait actually belongs to the sovereign nation of Iran. Right. And at this moment, Iranians are definitely trying to understand where the end game is to this war. And as Norman Floyd Barnes, alongside international media, is reporting that Iranian military may consider IT firms, tech firms belonging from the US, Apple, Microsoft, and the like sort, being attacked as legitimate targets. Now, it is important to know that Iran itself is observing almost a 33-day internet blackout. And the country is in a state of mourning after the passing of their leader, Ayatollah Ali Khamenei. And right now, it's in a bridging sort of nation. So not only so, China and Pakistan seems to be playing a very important role. Yesterday, they announced a 5-point initiative, including ensuring early passage through the Strait of Hormuz to restore peace and stability in the Middle East as regional conflict intensifies. But there are more support towards conflict than there is to resolution. I want to know how you see about it. Everyone is now indulging themselves in attacking one another.
Yeah, as you started, like the Donald Trump, he promised, he gave 2 weeks time, and then he attacked in 2 days. So that is the US discourses of preemptive action, which actually violating the international treaties and international the safeguards that a nation have. So one country's security threat must not undermine the sovereignty and self-determination of another country. Iran is an independent country. They have the rights to self-determination. There is a sovereign country. But unfortunately, the way US see the world is actually total chaos, total disaster, like the way we have seen 2001 Iraq war. then the attacks on Gaddafi, then this kind of and the attack on currently Iran and Venezuela, and the next is Cuba. So the way they design the international order is actually total disorder, total chaos. So from Iranian side, they always spoken that they believe in international treaties, international laws, they abide by the international principles, they abide by the NPT. So all of this, they followed all those principles apart from their continuous support for the Palestinian oppressed nation. The Iranian leader have repeatedly spoken that we are supporting in favor of oppressed rather than an oppressor. That the ideological standpoint of a country must have, and that Iran have, because from the 1979, the Iranian revolution, Iran has always spoken for the oppressed global oppressed nation. Even during the Ahmadinejad, we have seen there is a collaboration between Middle Eastern countries to Latin American countries, because they feel that that is oppressed, and there is a anti-imperialist coalition that was. So that is against the oppressor. So currently Iran is, as you said, with the losses of great Imam Khomeini, Iranian nation actually further inspired for that ideological causes. You know, we see the international world, international politics, the discourse of a nation through the realist schools only. But in Iranian case, it is of course an ideological schools they belongs to, because they said, even Imam Khomeini, the former leader, they said, right, for us, if Iran defeated, it doesn't bother us if Islam win, because you know their main cause is to serve the purposes of Islam, and they followed the great leader there, Imam Hussein, who sacrificed his life for the justice. So that is the Iranian nation. They are hugely inspired of. They are the very spirited nation, and even though there are lots of distraction, lots of losses of life, they are not back off. They are not feared of about this distraction. So that they continuously uphold this their right to self-determination, and their success is their people's unity. You know, you can see it is 3-4 weeks of war. There is not any mass demonstration against the war. People are more united, and they are supporting the rightful rights of the Iranian nation of self-determination. Their peaceful nuclear project, and also their they did not discover. They did not invented the nuclear bomb, because they think it is anti-human bombs. To say they increase their missile capacities, which is okay, but the
arguments were made that stated that the leader Ayatollah was always against creation of such a bomb,
because it is anti-human. It will kill indiscriminately children, adults, even all the animals in the world. So that is inhuman, and Islam doesn't permit this kind of inhuman war. Even in our prophetic time, we have seen the prophet instructed the children not to harm any women, not to harm any children, not to harm any elderly, not to kill any plants. So this is the Islamic ideal. So you have to see the war in terms of not only realist way, but also in ideological way that Iran is trying to upholding in this war.
Of course, very important updates and statements coming from Professor Rashid Alam. Ladies and gentlemen, it's time to take a short break. After the break, we shall discuss other fronts around the globe. Do stay tuned. Hello and welcome to International Affairs, and my name is Shamsul Alam Pantho.
I don't see an easy resolution to this, because every slight deviation from the plan,
opening an open war conflict with them,
testing nuclear missiles,
Russia's announcement of these supposedly successful testing,
special and exclusive footage that is being played on SATV screen,
Really coming to terms with Hamas.
Damage estimated between this entire issue.
President Trump is expected to hold bilateral talks.
preserving biodiversity and tackling climate change.
We cannot protect the planet before we negotiate peace.
Where is it going? Is it understanding the needs of its people before the needs of this global world?
For China to come to agreement,
They will face better projects.
With presidency of China and President Lee of South Korea.
Trump's White House that is in favor of these things.
simply not enough action being taken to address the problem of fossil fuels.
What their plan initially is towards the Caribbean a place that has been met with two types of disasters.
Bangladeshi students at the same level of opportunity internationally and domestically.
International Affairs. Watch every Sunday to Thursday at 2 p.m. only on SATV and SATV Digital. And viewers on International Affairs. Today I am joined with Associate Professor Rashid Alam-Bhuiya as well as our geopolitical correspondent Norman Floyd Burns from Washington District of Columbia. I want to raise an issue with Norman. It might seem very small and minute, but it is important, in which shows the judiciary versus the administration's head, U.S. President Donald Trump. A judge temporarily halted Trump's $400 million White House ballroom project. District Judge Richard Leon says the construction has to stop until Congress provides statutory authorization. This kind of news coming out in international media is important to understand how much control the U.S. president has. And not only so, market manipulation would be one of the important topics to bring alongside this, as Brent crude falls below $105 per barrel as the market prepares earlier war-driven gains. I want to know how you feel about this. Once we see the Brent crude going up all the way to $115 and then coming back down to 100 and below $105. So this manipulation that is happening, the movement in the market, how do you see this? I'm pretty sure some Americans are going to petrol stations, seeing the price rise and then falling down. It is cause of a concern in society. How do you see this, Norman?
Thank you for the question. Yes, the price of gasoline has gone up since last month. $1 is up to almost $4 right now. The average across the United States. The anticipation is that price is going to go up more, maybe $5, maybe $8 before we see any relief. That in itself causes other problems, because now it affects transportation, it affects food, it affects everything else. So we're going to see that cost spread out through everything things we need to live. We are now experiencing a period of time where there's a expectation that everything in the U.S. will increase. That reflects over to the pocketbooks of the American citizens. So it's predicted that we will see additional costs in food, medical supplies, transportation, anything to do with the movement of products. That is going to be reflected. These costs going to be added on to the everyday costs of living and purchasing in the United States. So that will eat into the pocketbooks of the American citizens. As you know, right now we're in a period of decline in terms of jobs, and people who work for the federal government is also concerned because they do not have right now enough money, depending on, because of the partial shutdown, on living every day. So the cost is going up for everyone, even the people who have jobs, we call stable jobs. Their cost is going to increase, and that is reflected as a hardship across the United States. It's unexpected. Most people think it's unnecessary because our country chose to engage in this conflict. The citizens are going to have to pay for this. Medical services, medical equipment, everything is going to increase as we move out through the year. We do not anticipate this thing is going to be just a several months, several weeks thing. We're looking at a long period of time. This is very, very harmful to the Americans as we get into the election in the fall, the midterm election. The issue is, how do you feel? Well, most people do not feel very well, and that's going to reflect on the polls when it comes in. I can guarantee you it will be reflected on how you feel the government is taking care of you, how you feel things are going, how you feel about the administration, how you feel about yourself. So right now, the United States is prepared for a period of more downsizing, less money, less impact, and most importantly, a growing distrust for the current administration.
Of course, important updates from Norman Floyd Barnes regarding how common Americans are going to pull on for the rest of the year and how their government is actually looking after their citizens. It's important.
Right.
Due to such issue, similar question back into the studio with Rashid Alam, sir. Because of such situation, we start to understand the importance of alternative methods of energy. We could look at hydro energy, we could look at solar technology, and how far that has developed over this last 26 years of this century. And it's important to have alternatives, given that fact. Right now in the Middle East, we are having a warlike situation. Oil or crude oil, Brent crude, whichever one you look after, whether it be gasoline, whether it be diesel, the movement, the flow of such resource has been restricted to somewhat level. It has caused distress all over the world, including our nation here in Bangladesh. What are some of the alternatives, and do you think that because of such war, market manipulation is being conducted in various regions, especially those surrounding the US president? How do you think about this?
Thank you so much. So, as a alternative to the gasoline, like the fossil fuel, we should have more investment, like the solar panels, hydrocarbon, other issues. Like China has invested a lot in the last couple of decades in that regards, and we had an assumption that since another alternative engineering of the fossil fuel dependent car, like the battery run engines and other things, we have an assumption that we can get our dependency from the fossil fuel. But now it seems that it's not that easy. Globally, only 20%, less than 20% are actually coming from alternative to the fossil fuel. Still 80% of the total energy needs actually fulfilling by the fossil fuel. So that has been impacted, like particularly the countries of the Europe, countries of the Southeast Asia, East Asia. The Thailand government earlier said they are agreed to any other condition that Iranian government imposed, but they only want the fossil fuel, the uninterrupted supply of the fossil fuel. So this shows that how much dependent we are still on the fossil fuel. And as a country, Bangladesh is also like the third world countries like South Asian and also African countries, they are still heavily dependent on this fossil fuel. So the countries should invest more, like the solar panels and more the airs. We should be investing more on that to cope up this kind of situation. And also the strategic reserve is also very much important, that countries like Bangladesh doesn't think of it about. Although European countries, they have those strategic reserve which can give them 2 to 3 months. For even China have nearly 1 year of strategic reserve. So that is the future. The countries should be looking into it, because you need this kind of a strategic reserve when this kind of conflict erupted. And secondly, you asked about like the issues of
manipulation,
market manipulation, right? On 22nd of March, we have heard that before the Donald Trump announcement of that he is giving 5 more days to the 5 more days of halt.
Right.
So that created massive manipulation in the markets. The people who knew that, they earned a lot. I mean, $1,000 by that. And it is heard that some family members of the Donald Trump and some close quarters make millions out of those speculation and those inside secret news they had. So this is another way of like the manipulation we can see in the global capital market, particularly the price of the gold, price of oil, very sensitive with those kind of information. So this is another dishonesty and conflict of interest that we are seeing from the premier of the US, like US president. So the way he is involved with there is lots of conflict of interest we have seen in the last couple of years from his side, like which is Americans cheating with the American population,
right,
I think.
Absolutely. A very important update and how you see regarding the alternatives to fossil fuels. I want a last statement from Norman Floyd. It is April the 1st. We start with a new month. I want to get a closing statement from you. How you see Marco Rubio as well commenting on the fact that NATO was not seen, or allies in Europe was not seen supportive of reopening the Strait of Hormuz. The ending from Norman Floyd Burns, how are you seeing this upcoming several weeks?
Yes, we're forecasting, we are looking at the issues that fossil fuel would translate into oil. Is the energy that runs the world. We talk about alternative measures, but everything emanates from the use of energy comes from fossil fuels. So we are not going to get away from that anytime soon. And Mr. Secretary Rubio's comments is looked at as it is. We listen to see exactly what he said, but I do not hold any type of strong opinion on that because he will say what the president want him to say, and that is what we dealing with. They have a plan, and hopefully we can get this plan implemented in the next 2 to 3 weeks, so we can get back on to the scale of global, dealing with global issues instead of regional and personal issues against each other.
Of course, I would like to thank Norman Floyd Burns for joining us through Zoom on this broadcast. Ladies and gentlemen, it is time to take another commercial break. Afterwards, we shall see the effects this international event has on our region. Do stay tuned. Hello and welcome to International Affairs, and my name is Shamsul Pantho.
I don't see an easy resolution to this because every slight deviation from the plan,
opening an open war conflict with them,
testing nuclear missiles,
Russia's announcement of these supposedly successful testing,
Special and exclusive footage that is being played on SATV screen.
Really coming to terms with Hamas.
Damage estimated between this entire issue.
President Trump is expected to hold bilateral talks.
preserving biodiversity and tackling climate change.
We cannot protect the planet before we negotiate peace.
Where is it going? Is it understanding the needs of its people before the needs of this global world?
For China to come to agreement,
they will face better projects
with presidency of China and President Lee of South Korea.
Trump's White House that is in favor of these things.
Simply not enough action being taken to address the problem of fossil fuels.
What their plan initially is towards the Caribbean, a place that has been met with two types of disasters.
Bangladeshi students at the same level of opportunity internationally and domestically.
International Affairs. Watch every Sunday to Thursday at 2 p.m. only on SATV and SATV Digital. Our viewers for once again joining on International Affairs. We were joined by Norman Floyd Burns, and in the studio we have Associate Professor Rashid Alam Bhuiya. And the next discussion issue is of course related to Bangladesh and how we are stemming away and stemming into this war that is proceeding on to its second month. We understand that a foreign currency reserve, let me define what that term is. Of course, having a reserve of Bangladeshi net value in foreign currency in abroad. However, I want to bring in this issue as the Middle East sees increased attacks on infrastructure, aluminium plants, oil refineries, airports. All of these places have somewhat contribution of common Bengali employment, common Bengali workers. And because of this war, these employees who are expatriate employees who are working abroad, remittance soldiers, we can call them, of course, very important to Bangladesh's stability, economic stability. And because of such war, the remittance inflow into Bangladesh would decrease. I want to know more from Professor Rashid Alam. How are you seeing this issue?
Thank you so much for bringing the issue, because since I'm a labor market expert, I did my PhD on the migration, international labor migration. So, you know, Saudi Arabia hosts nearly 3 million Bangladeshis, you know, UAE also another 2 million. So that is 5 million Bangladeshis, and other countries also hold another 2-3 million. So like 8 million Bangladeshis staying in Middle Eastern countries, and that is the main source of our remittance, since all these sectors being under attack, and there are further threat of escalation, like, you know, UAE, because, you know, UAE, the policies they are doing, particularly angering Iran. So if they continuously doing so, Iran might attack UAE, and that could be posing a huge disaster for UAE itself and also for Bangladesh economy, because, you know, all the investment then diverted from UAE, and that gonna cause massive unemployment. And the current worker that we are having in the UAE, Saudi Arabia, might come back. That could create huge panic for Bangladesh economy, because, you know, every month we receive roughly 300 million US dollar as a remittances. So and that majority of those come from Saudi Arabia, UAE, and those Gulf countries. So our economy is very much, and our rural and international economy and our foreign currency reserve is heavily dependent on this foreign remittances that we are earning from this laborers. They are sending that amount of money, which can also reduce our capacity to import, and that can also have a reciprocal effect on our food security, unemployment, and total chaos. So this war,
we're looking at working from home, going into a lockdown. Out of the 7 days, 3 days shall be from home. These are all decisions taken in the face of complete uncertainty.
And then when these people would not be able to earn, if they required to come back, if they require to repatriate, because, you know, if a full-scale war is imminent between the UAE and Iran, that would cause massive shock for the country. Already we are paying the prices of high fuel prices, fuel prices, and if the sources of employment gone down, you know, as you said, everything, I mean, coal plant, their gas plant, their energy plant, their steel industry, aluminum industry, everything, airport, which actually hosting lots of international migrant workers, including Bangladeshis. So that gonna cause massive impact, and this war actually benefiting the warmongers, the arms industry, and apart from every other citizen, even the US population, US people, the general mass people, we do not against them. They are our brothers, but they are suffering as well. They are paying the bills of this war. And who is benefiting? The war industry and the war tycoons and those the corrupted leaders like USA having at the moment. So Bangladesh must address these issues. They need to go for peacemaking. I mean, Pakistan has come back. Pakistan is trying to reduce this escalation by taking those peace efforts. Bangladesh must also send their, those kind of messages to these countries, so that we, as a region, we should not be suffered from this war. The Southeast Asia also will crumble. East Asia will crumble, and Bangladesh will crumble. Already Japan is having huge threat of the energy crisis, because
not only Japan, is South Korea as well. Semiconductor industry is taking a toll.
Exactly. So that's going to increase everything. The electronic product price will be increased double, triple. So ultimately, it's our economy that's going to be affected. So the global South population need to address these issues. America is doing the interest of warmongers, but not the general people. But as a precautionary, as a de-escalation effort, the countries like Bangladesh, the countries like YC, the countries like South Asian, Asian, those kind of regional countries, they must have to act often for peacemaking effort, and also work for the de-escalation, so that the economy, the people's lives is safe. Because, you know, we have seen, and the food security will be another major issue within a month if this war doesn't stop now.
Of course, very important updates coming from you, sir. I want to ask you a last question. How do you see the upcoming days for Bangladesh? We know there's a new government in place. They are doing, the parliament session has resumed, and of course, we're looking at various issues relating back to 2024 and the 36 days of July that we have seen. Just a comment, how you see Bangladesh faring with this situation in the Middle East?
So my advice to the government and the way the government is doing, my observation is just do the normal things, do the business as usual business of the. You need to improve the security of people's life. You know, when the Eid vacation started, we have seen nearly 300, 400 casualties. We do not need massive high project. We do not need any more bridges. We do not need anything. Just do the day-to-day duties and save people's lives. That is the valiant effort. Rather than visionary, multi-billion-dollar infrastructural project, do not do this because it's a crisis
Awareness
moment.
amongst society should be given more importance.
And it's the wartime, you have to do the normal things, not taking any more multi-billion-dollar infrastructural project because you are in huge deficit model at the moment, and if your foreign remittance fall down, I do not know how the country will run. So at the moment, government should always reduce their expenditure, should not go for any ambitious project, rather than do the day-to-day duties, save people lives, save people economy, and save people jobs, and also ensure food security. That's normal. I do not need anything at the moment because until this war stops. Yeah.
Of course, I want to thank Professor Rashid Alam Bhuiya for your valuable insights and contribution, not only on international issues but as well as domestic issues here in Bangladesh. Thanking Norman Floyd Barnes from Washington, District of Columbia, for his valuable insights as well. Ladies and gentlemen, I want to finish with some news regarding the FIFA World Cup. Four-time world champion Italy failed to qualify for a third World Cup in a row after a devastating penalty shootout defeat by Bosnia and Herzegovina. And not only so, we have Iraq defeating Bolivia 2-1 to qualify for FIFA World Cup 2026 to their first FIFA World Cup since 1986. With that being said, I am signing out on International Affairs. I shall catch you all on tomorrow's program.